Hey everybody, this is Devin Francis, aka Leonard Meltzner,
And Victoria.
and you're watching the 36th episode of the Adventures in Odyssey Oddcast.
Yay!
Today we are doing
Mission Unaccomplished review and
part 2.
Yeah, part 2. And Gloobers! Woo!
Yes! Yeah. So, let's hop right into the beginning. There's not really any new news to announce, so let's start. Episode 744, Mission Unaccomplished, Part 2, the June episode for the Odyssey Adventure Club. Right off the bat, I forgot to mention last time that the featured charity for these episodes is Compassion International, which is a missionary organization which works overseas and in underdeveloped areas to sponsor children and do other projects. This is where Brock is now working, where he stepped down from the OAC and from Focus to work. So presumably God called him to transfer there while he was working on these episodes, though, we don't know that for sure, but it does make sense. Okay, so starting off, we have our opening sting, which we now know that Garrett does the music for, which makes them all that much better. It's very exciting, and this was an exceptionally good one because I'm extremely anal about spoilers, so I really appreciated that one. Yes? Yeah. Yes, you can do your description now.
Did you say that Kathy Buchanan wrote this episode?
I didn't, but she did.
So, Mission Unaccomplished. What's the boy's name? Because I
Michael.
totally forgot it. Okay, I didn't write it. I just wrote the boy in, the whole description. So, the episode opens on the Parkers discovering that Michael, who's the boy with the hole in his heart, will be alright as long as he can get an expensive operation. Olivia and Matthew say that they decided not to go to summer camp so they could give their registration money towards Michael's operation. Unfortunately, they learn that this is not nearly enough money, and the operation will cost around $16,000.
I think you meant $29,000.
That too. Olivia and Matthew then try to make a video to send to everyone back in Odyssey asking if they can send money so Michael can have the operation. But the power goes out and the video's lost. Meanwhile, Camilla makes a doll head for one of the girls in the village who lost her doll head, and she really likes it. Yeah. Ava goes to a political campaign with one of the nurses in the village and learns that one of the political leaders there used to be Ava's sponsor child when they were both girls.
Just turn the mic down a little bit because we were peaking a lot before. There we go.
Blah, 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 blah. And Ava also learns that she made a greater impact on her sponsor child's life than she ever could have imagined. Back with Olivia and Matthew, they find out that Whit spread the word of Michael needing the money for his operation, and everyone in Odyssey sent enough money for him to have his operation. At the end, he gets his operation. Ava learned how big a difference one person can make on another person's life. Matthew saw a monkey at the end, like I totally called last episode. Olivia made her movie. Camilla made a new friend, and David did pretty much nothing for the whole two-parter.
Yeah.
He was pointless. He didn't do anything at all.
It's true. Okay, so,
right off the bat, I want to say I called two things from the last episode. One is that this episode was going to be, amazing. I don't know, I thought it kind of was. That's why I said I was going to have to take a couple points off, because I figured it would be. And also I called Matthew would see the monkey at the end.
Well, I think that was pretty obvious.
I still called it.
That's true.
Yeah, you did not.
No, but if you'd asked me whether or not I thought it...
Your point is invalid.
I found it really surprising that a doctor in Thailand, I guess from the camera structure in Thailand, would want to do open heart surgery pro bono for a kid in Kenya.
What does that mean?
Do you not remember, Victoria?
No. I listened to the episode 4 days ago.
No, I mean, don't you remember from album 50? What pro bono means?
Apparently you do.
It means that he's going to do the work for free because he can't afford it. Remember Robin Jacobs wanted to be a pro bono lawyer? Be able to be legal defense for people who can't afford it.
Oh, okay.
And they're like, and Connie was like,
That
wow,
doesn't
that's
count.
really surprising.
That
And she's
doesn't
like,
count.
why?
That's an deleted scene.
That's
doesn't
true.
count. It doesn't count.
That is unbelievably generous. Apart from what a huge Operation Open Heart Surgery is, there's an entire continent between them. So I was thinking, there's no way that the pro bono here is covering transportation for either of these parties, whichever way we're traveling. And it turns out I was right. It definitely did not cover as much as I thought, because that's still a lot of expenses and a lot of money. $29,000, or it might have been 26. I think it was 29. The sewed together, falling apart headless doll.
Made me think of Lilo.
Yeah, Lilo and Scrub.
Scrub.
The maggots in its
Have
head
you
or
gotten to the
whatever
part
it
with
was.
David and like the cooking breakfast thing? Because that was at the beginning.
Probably past that.
Okay, so like David's trying to generously offering to make breakfast for everyone, and everyone's just like, "No, Dad, we don't like you. Go do something else. You don't do anything in this episode. Leave us alone." And he's just like, "I'll go cry in the corner." And then Ava's like, "Who wants breakfast?" And they're all like, "We do. Make us eggs." And David's just like, "Why does everyone hate me?" And that's his whole role in this episode.
It's basically that same thing as, everyone's like, hey, Dad. They're like, where's Mom? And then, hey, Mom, blah, 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 blah. People.
Yeah, it's like the thing with Eugene and Connie. It's like, why couldn't you have asked me that? Or Connie, Eugene, and what?
When the description for the episode said that Ava was going to meet a political figure, I was expecting, it sounded more like it was going to be some sort of political intrigue, cover-up, drama, action, adventure kind of stuff, though that doesn't really fit with the episode theme or the amount of time that's left or the story structure or anything like that. So I don't know what I was expecting. Definitely wasn't what happened.
One of my mottos is a lot of things can happen in a short amount of time.
That's true, but it would have been, if it had been that, it would have been very poorly structured because you would wanted to have had seeded that earlier in the story, right?
True.
Yes.
But it could still happen.
It could happen, but it would be very poorly executed.
That is true, but so could happen.
Wit really should have given the kids an edulink or an egghead, Eugenius,
no, that has to
whatever
do with hand up.
thing.
Everything in hand up nowadays is prohibited.
That would have taken care of all their power and internet problems.
No, Devin, no hand up. Hand down.
Edulink was developed before hand up. Well, no, technically it wasn't, but Wit was working on it beforehand. Okay, so, like I said, the whole political thing, what actually happened with the sponsorship child was definitely unexpected. I didn't realize that the concept of child sponsorship in Africa was a practice that was old enough that someone in that system would be as old as this senator sounds like she is now. I always figured it was a much newer kind of practice from, like, the last 10 or 20 years, maybe 30 or so.
That's because you've only been alive for that long.
10 to 20, maybe 30 years.
Yes.
It's very good, accurate portrayal of my age.
Yes.
And there we go.
I found that part, like, lots of the parts pretty touching in this episode. Like, all this stuff with, like, Ava, and then, I don't know if you got into this part, when she's reading the letter, that made me go like, oh.
Yes, it was sweet. And there we go. Camilla's connecting with people, and that's what I was talking about last time in my predictions. Ava's letter, it reminds me of both Operation Dig Out and The Pact, in that both of these episodes are instances of how seed planting early in life can seem so inconsequential and we forget about them, we ever did anything, and then later in life it still blooms into more than we could have ever hoped for, just like Wit did for Reginald Duffield and Joanne did for Agnes. So it's the same kind of thing, which is really cool. And it turned into something really nice. Like, wow, that was very sweet.
And now, like, Ava's pretty much in charge of Kenya, if you think about it, in an indirect way.
Yeah.
She's like the queen of Kenya.
Basically, and Wit can exert his influence over the Parker family now to expand his mobster operations.
Yeah, when they're like, oh, by the way...
Today's Chicago, tomorrow Africa.
We got all this money, and now we can pay for everything. Oh, where did that come? And they're like, it's from Mr. W or something like that. And
Mr.
I'm just
John White, John Whittimer, G. Willikers, something. It's from John Phillips.
And then I'm just listening to this, and I'm just like, Wit.
I
You're
know.
just the answer to everything.
I know,
I'm
it's
like,
like-
how much money don't you
They
have?
said it's wired from him, so it's like, man, he is laying down the big bucks here. He cannot hide his fat stacks from anyone.
It makes me wonder how there's actually poverty in the world of Odyssey if like Wit is alive.
Yeah.
Like he just gives money to everyone.
And he has so much of it.
I know. He has like an endless supply of money. You know, it'd be like the biggest shock in the whole series, something they could do for a later album. It'd be like if Wit goes bankrupt. The
That
ceiling
would be a
fan,
shock.
it'd be funny if the ceiling fan did something like that for a news thing. It's like, Wit's been giving out too many things to charities and helping too many people.
It's not
now he's
happening anytime
completely
soon.
bankrupt.
He could put some pressure on his folks in Chicago,
Yeah.
cough up some more money. But hey, on the subject of news, Channel 10 News, Ted Humphries, continuity, exciting.
Yep.
Got me happy.
I knew that name
so-
sounded familiar. Green Ring Conspiracy.
Yeah. Hey, my parents listen to you all the time. Puts them to sleep.
I love Jay.
So, yeah, turns out we were wrong about Wit. He didn't pay for all of the money.
We know he paid for all the money.
Yeah. But still, and it wasn't even really his crazy connections. It was more of, the fact that everyone in Odyssey is extremely generous and stuff. But still, he's got a lot of influence, like we all already knew. I love how Michael asks Matthew and Olivia to come to Thailand with him to accompany him for the surgery. Like, yeah, no, they raised a lot of money, but not enough to spend on 2 round trips to
I don't know, Wit would
Southeastern
probably
Asia.
pay for all of it.
He would, but they didn't have internet to ask him. So,
Oh, right.
yeah.
You know, Odyssey is supposed to be like a small town. I always imagine it having like 12 people or something. So that means everyone paid like about $2,000
Yeah.
each, including like
But no,
all the
seriously,
small children. and
Odyssey is
stuff.
not a small town. Come on, it is.
It is not a small town,
It's 7 times bigger than our town.
and I don't even think our town's that small.
Yeah, it's small.
Oh, okay.
We're V1N for a reason, Victoria.
That means nothing to me.
The 1 is how rural the town is on a scale of 0 to 9.
Well, at least we're not
So,
zero.
like, yeah,
But,
towns like Salmo and Roslyn are zeros.
Ha
but,
ha ha ha.
But, yeah, Vancouver's only 6, which is weird because there's 1.5
Carry on.
million people in it. I can't believe he's going by himself, though, unless Jessica's going with him. It seemed kind of vague. I don't know. And
I
finally,
don't know, maybe they're like, everything else is free, kid, we had to pay for all it, fend for yourself, and just push them on the plane and leave them alone.
at the end, the car breaks down. I was like, yay, here's the album art. Now David can fix the car, and everyone has played their part. It all comes full circle. Except,
Matthew's the one that fixes the car.
Matthew's the one who fixed it. All
Like,
David did was
if-
tip the water bottle over.
David, yeah, he made things worse.
No, that's what he had to do to fix it, but Matthew was the one who knew what to do with it.
Yeah, but seriously though, if David never came, nothing would be different. I mean, like,
No.
the two-parter would be, like, a little bit shorter, because they'd cut some dialogue out. The only thing he actually did at any point was, like, supervise Matthew and Olivia while they were watching the video, something they already knew how to do, because all you have to do is press play. That's all he did.
Yeah. And
So-
there's the monkey. There's
Yeah,
obviously,
the monkey.
episode obviously would not be complete without it. And, yeah, Matthew fixed the car with
You know,
that
part
more
of
than
me,
David did.
part of me
so.
was hoping he
I
wouldn't get to
digress.
see the monkey. Like, he'd go home and he was just like, everything's good, but he's like, but no monkey. Let's never go
No.
to Kenya again.
A show like this wouldn't happen unless everyone has all their dreams fulfilled at the end.
Except for David. Unless his dream was doing nothing.
That's true. So for the bonus video that they have, like they have for all the OAC episodes, it's a video about child sponsorship with compassion, and this little girl Elizabeth is speaking Spanish because she's from Guatemala, I think it was, and they have a voiceover translation, and I'm pretty sure that it's Katie Lee doing the voiceover, and she's doing a little girl's Spanish accent, and it sounds weird because it only sounds weird because it's Katie doing it, but still, it's just
Ouch.
like, well, no, I mean, it's not the voice that's weird, it's just the
'cause
fact
it's
that,
Connie.
exactly, and it's really weird to wrap your head around that is doing it. It's bizarre. Also, the fact that we got to look into the lives of not just random strangers who are sponsoring children, but got to look at Rudy Hare's family, who's a sound designer for Odyssey, is really cool. Because as nice as it is to hear from, different random people, it's also cool to learn more about the production team for AIOO, because we don't get to appreciate them usually as much as we do the cast So, that's neat. Thoughts on the episode overall, Victoria?
I liked it. I thought it was pretty touching. It still wasn't like super exciting, but it could keep my attention, definitely.
Mm-hmm.
Not as much as an action episode or something like that, but it was still good. It was pretty heart-touching stuff with Camilla and the doll's head. I think my favorite moments, though, were the ones with Ava and her sponsor.
That was the
lady.
The high point of the episode, definitely.
That was the best part. David did nothing at all, but we already talked about that.
Yeah.
Matthew and Olivia's kind of side plot was, I don't know what you're doing, was
1 to 5.
kind of interesting. Michael didn't really do anything. It's not like he could, really.
No.
He saved Matthew in the last part.
That's true.
I'll give him that.
So.
I think I'll give it a 3.5. Have to take a couple marks off for the boringness of the last part, to be blunt. And those other points are for the things I enjoyed. Also, another couple points off for having characters that did not do anything. So, yeah. What about you?
That is actually the same rating that I gave it.
Oh, okay.
And I didn't just copy you because I actually put my rating on my comment on the Odyssey site when I did it last night. So yeah, 3.5 is also what I gave the episode. It was sweet in the end, and I liked the way they tied things up. I was basically right in all of my predictions about how they learned about, how their plans didn't really come through the way they wanted, but God still knew what he wanted to do with them, and it wasn't about them just filling out, the way they thought things had to go, but they had to do more of, connecting with people and understanding the spiritual difference that they were making there. Michael survived. Like I thought I didn't see the sponsor child thing coming, which is interesting because, the sponsored charity is Compassion International, which is all about sponsoring kids, but there was no mention of it in the first part, which is weird because normally for something that's such a, like an important point in the episode, normally there'd be some sort of foreshadowing or something or
also,
mention.
It's interesting that if
Unless
you think
I forgot
about
it.
This, I think, is the first time in Odyssey they've mentioned children.
Yeah, it is.
So that's interesting.
Yeah, Ava might have mentioned something in the first part, and I just forgot about it, about having had a sponsored child a long time ago.
She did.
I don't think so either, but who knows? I might have missed it because I wasn't looking for it.
The first part was kind of hard to pay attention to.
I'm actually really surprised. Well, I'm a little bit surprised that my whole comment did make it through onto the OAC from the last one, because I was a little worried that for a board that's mostly like 9-year-old homeschooling kids posting back and forth to each other about like what TV shows they like and stuff in the comment section, that they put through like my 1,000 character breakdown and calling people out on like I was talking about savior complex and the way that we misrepresent the Africa and the racist ideas that we portray as a society towards charity work there. I was kind of surprised that the mods let that through.
I think it's interesting that this year in English, one day we spent the day like learning about like Africa and stuff and like celebrity influence and how they portray it and how it actually is. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, oh, I didn't know Africa was actually this well off. And Devin and I had a conversation about it the other day.
Before the other day or after the other day? I guess you were already out of school.
No, this was like at the beginning of semester turnaround.
Ah.
But we won't talk about the conversation we had the other day. Let's just say Africa is a lot more well off than I thought it was in
parts
some areas.
Of it, yeah.
Some areas.
Yes, it is not all
some
complete
areas
desolation
look
and
like
poverty.
New York. I'll say that.
Yeah, which Victoria didn't realize.
I did not know. We won't get any more into it.
So what was I saying? It was nice that they were able to have separate storylines for all the different characters, except for really David. That I have to take. That was a detraction. The fact that the first part
and it
didn't
sucks
move along.
I like
David.
Good. I don't know about you.
Yeah,
I think
he's okay.
I don't know. I think I like David more than like, probably Camilla. I think Camilla is my least favorite.
Yeah, I'd say that's fair. I think I like David more.
Yeah.
I like
So,
that.
I liked Camilla in this episode, though.
I like
I don't
Ava
know,
more
she's-
than David, definitely.
Yeah, I think
And it's
I
nice
do,
to have
too.
more cultural representation on the show, too.
Yeah. So.
Even if Lucia does bug me a little at times.
Yeah.
But then
I
again...
think you're the reason I started disliking her a little bit.
Well, it's funny, because we did, your servants listening. I liked her more after that episode, and you liked her less.
Yeah. Now we're like equal. Anyway,
Yeah.
your rating?
So yeah,
wait,
3.5. Yeah, so there were probably other things I'm going to say, but I've forgotten about them because Victoria was talking about stuff.
I am
but
sorry.
That's okay. You guys get the idea. So, on to Gloobers.
Woo!
Part 2. And we'll go slide up.
Woo!
Alright. Second episode now, episode 415. Gloobers, Victoria's favorite episode of Adventures in Odyssey.
Yay!
Not my favorite episode of Adventures in Odyssey.
Boo!
Written by John Fornoff. Victoria, please give us a brief description of this episode.
Devin's emphasizing the word brief because I wrote...
Victoria wrote...
I wrote like a page description of this episode, and then Devin completely rewrote my description.
In a much shorter format, because I think Victoria's sort of forgotten the purpose for which she decided that we needed these descriptions in the first place, which is not to give a complete and hyper-detailed line-by-line breakdown of the plot.
It's only because it was Gloopers.
Last week's was basically that long, too.
No, it wasn't.
For Buried Sin?
No,
yeah. Okay.
That's because that's my second favorite episode.
Oh.
It has Jared in it, too. So, Gloopers. Jared has become obsessed with a video game called Gloopers, and Dwayne, who also really likes playing it, thinks that he needs to spend more time on other activities. In response, Eugene hooks the game up to the Room of Consequences so the boys can play the game in virtual reality. Jared quickly becomes bored with the gameplay and turns off the safety protocols, allowing the game to learn on its own. The game becomes invaded by the Master Brain, who offers to let the boys play all the games in the world forever at the cost of their time. Dwayne puts up a fight, and then the boys are imprisoned. An ancient-looking 12-year-old boy named Gregory, well, not really boy anymore, reveals that the brain is sucking the life from the players. Because wasting your time is wasting your life, to quote Gregory. The boys defeat the brain after it looks like he has the upper hand for a little bit, and escape the program, only to discover that Eugene planned the entire program to teach Gregory's lesson. And the real Gregory, who is actually a 12-year-old boy and not sounding like he's 80, was the inspiration for the program.
See, I covered everything pretty concisely there, didn't I?
Not really, no.
Yes.
You cut out all the stuff with, like, Jared's betrayal and, like, fight scenes and stuff.
If people want a hyper-detailed one, they can go to AIOO Wiki for that. This is just supposed to just give people a quick, this is what the episode's about. I probably could have cut out a lot of that, too.
Don't say that. You're mocking my favorite. It's because you don't like this one.
It is not that. I would have said that about any episode description that was that long. There seems to be something weird about Eugene saying that he convinced Wit to let him turn the Room of Consequence into a virtual reality chamber. Because what was it before he turned it into a virtual reality chamber? That's kind of, the definition of the Room of Consequence and the transmuter and the imagination station and the inspiration station.
This song is cut, if you're listening to it on the CD, it is cut up into 3 tracks. The first, the last one is when they get captured by the Master Brain towards the end. Second one's is, from them entering the game to them turning up the levels. And the first one's, the intro with Eugene talking to them. So I would always skip to track 2 when listening to it. A bunch of times, because I always found the scene with Eugene kind of boring, because it's exposition, exposition, exposition. I'm like, get to the game! It's funny, because I don't know, maybe one of the reasons I liked this episode so much when I was little is because it was about video games, and I never was able to play any video games or have a gaming system till I was 12.
So hard done by.
I was the only person I knew other than you, but you don't count, that didn't get to play video games. So that
I play games on the computer, which is also what Gloopers is.
Yeah, but they didn't have video games back then.
Yeah, they did. Do you know how
I
old
wonder
the
if
SNES is?
I wonder how, like, if Tron, like, inspired this episode a little bit. What do you think?
Well, no, it doesn't, because we know what inspired it. And we'll get there at the end when we talk about the notes in the official guide.
Way to prove my analysis theory wrong, Devin.
Thank you, Victoria. That's what I'm here for. If I could do this with Myst, I would spend the rest of my life in the Room of Consequence.
I would do it with Kingdom Hearts, and I would kill Maleficent.
Come to think of it, that's basically what happened to Connie in the Inspiration Station. So we're portraying a very good example of that episode. Except with Myst, it's much more literal what happened to Connie. Because she was like, oh, it's so wonderful and peaceful, beautiful landscapes here. Whereas Kingdom Hearts is a little more chaotic than that.
But it's Disney, and that's all that counts. Like, if it was Myst, I would die a bunch of times. What would happen to you if you died while you were in the Room of Consequence while playing a video game?
I don't know. We've never seen what happens when you die in any situation in any of Wit's VR devices.
Lots of the characters have almost died. I think it shuts down before you die.
Probably.
Because that's what happens in everything. I mean, like, it's usually Wit turning it off.
Granted, you know, that the closest we've ever had to that happening to someone was the Mortal Coil. And Wit went into a coma for 24 hours.
Well, the characters have almost been killed a lot of times.
I know.
Like Robin and
I'm just
Jack
saying that's
in Eliza
the closest.
Part 2,
the closest anyone has come to dying in the Imagination Station is probably Wit's death program. And the real life effects of that was he went into a coma for 24 hours. So probably not the best thing.
Yeah.
Also on the topic of things that happen in the future of Odyssey, this whole thing that Eugene did here, if we were to think of, you know, what he did here as what he said he did, not his sneaky little trick program that it turned out he did in the end, the whole make Gloobers into a game program thing was basically made obsolete by the media scan update to the Imagination Station. Then again, you know...
Everything was made obsolete.
Yeah, exactly. Everything was made obsolete.
I wish they didn't have that.
Yeah.
Because it makes things too easy. It just...
But think about it, Victoria. You could scan any book or movie or video game or TV show or radio show and then enter it. Yeah, but it's
more entertaining to hear them say, like, I spent my blood, sweat, tears, and a little bit of water I accidentally spilt into making this program.
That sounds really scary, actually, if you spilt water into the console while you're programming.
Oh,
Do not use that program.
It's not the worst thing that's happened to the programs.
Yeah. So that's true. I thought about that, but then I was like, everything's obsolete now that they did beforehand.
It's really
because he could scan Gloobers in just as easily or any game now, but he, you know, they can also do any historical adventure.
Eugene had like the same reaction as everyone else when he found out about the scanner. He's just like, "Oh, I'm gonna go cry."
I don't think that's not the reaction I had. I was like, "That's the coolest thing ever."
My reaction was kind of like,
I don't think it nullifies all the work that they did before. I mean, it just opens up the possibilities so much more for what can be done with the IS now.
I don't really even think they use the scanner.
Yeah, I know. But it's still there.
Do you think they forgot about it?
Yeah.
Like, they're programming all this stuff, they're spending, like, weeks and weeks doing it, and then they find the programmer, or the scanner, and they're just like...
Who knows if it even exists in the new, you know, rooms and doors and hallway version of the Imagination Station, but...
They probably put it in a room, and they forgot where that room was.
Yeah, the potential is still there, because, you know, because it's the high-tech washroom, right?
Can't find it.
I love how the boys just kind of accept the idea that this game was actually developed with artificial intelligence. Like real AI has been created and it's being used for a computer game
Are you surprised Eugene and Wit could make up something like that?
No, I'm not saying because Wit has developed basic AIs.
Eugene made in your wildest dream he made like the Wit cyborg thing. Which I was really hoping would take over the world. No, it learned as it went. People talked to it, and then it remembered what they said. It learned their names, and it was able to do other stuff.
That's different from being an AI, but...
It learned as it went. That's artificial intelligence.
Yeah, that's not what learning as you go means.
Yeah, but this wasn't really AI. This was learning as it goes, too. Eugene says that at the beginning.
Well, yeah, but this kind of learning as it goes is AI.
Well,
the kind that the Witbot was doing wasn't.
The Imagination Station's like that, too.
I know. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is, I mean, Wit has technology way above the rest of the world. in the Odyssey verse.
Yeah,
we know
and
that.
Wit helped Eugene make it.
I know, Victoria. You're not listening to what I'm saying.
You're not making sense.
That's because you didn't let me finish.
Finish.
Wit has always had, like, basic AI and stuff he's used, but I'm saying that Eugene is trying to convince the boys that this game was developed by a random gaming company that developed artificial intelligence that wasn't Wit. He's saying that this other random company that wasn't Wit invented artificial intelligence, and they were using it for this game and apparently nothing else. And while Wit, we know, hoards all of his crazy futuristic technology to himself, another company like that would have used it for other stuff.
Well,
which is why the
I'm pretty
NSA is
sure-
always... The NSA
No, I'm
and the
pretty
FBI
sure
are
that
on his back whenever he does anything.
I'm pretty sure that what's company called the Encyclopedia...
Universal Press Foundation.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure they own everything. They're like the Disney of Odyssey.
I know, but that's why the FBI and the NSA are always on Wit's back every time he tinkers with his machines, because they realize that, you know, they can't touch his technology, but they want to be involved with everything that they can.
Move on. I think it makes sense. You think your dumb thoughts if you want.
I think that one of the sources of distaste that I have with this episode is how ridiculous the Gloobers sound and are designed and act.
Well, there's plenty of monsters.
I mean, they hardly
make noises like that. Like if you think of like grunts and stuff like that and brutes, they make
in which game?
In like, they're like Left 4 Dead and Amnesia and stuff like that. They make noises like that. There's plenty.
They go.
Of monsters.
That's the noise.
No,
that
but
they
make like noises or whatever.
Groaning is different than like tongue waggling noises. And the fact that
there are monsters that make noises like that. It's a kids game. Jared and Dwayne are kids. It's a kids game, so they'd make noises like that.
Yeah. Either way, the Gloobers to me, they hardly seem antagonistic, but who knows? Maybe that's the point. Maybe that's they're trying to accentuate the master brain's personality by contrast, which is an interesting thought.
We're coming up to the only part in the episode where I have problems with.
Which is?
The tickling scene.
Yes, that's my point. The Gloobers' design and their actions and their sound and the tickling.
I can't really defend this scene at all.
And that's exactly what I mean. I didn't just mean the sounds that they made. I mean, that's the first thing that came to mind, but that and, yeah, you know, I get maybe thinking about it now, it could be because, you know, Focus was trying to avoid portraying any actual video game violence, so they had them tickle them to death instead.
It's a kid's game.
I know, but it still feels
like... when you play Super Mario Brothers, like, Brawl, Peach's weapon is like a frying pan, and then she sings and everyone falls asleep. And there's other, like, things where, like...
tickling is so much worse than that.
where you, like, put people in a stew pot, and then you, like, mix it up, and then they all come out, and then they are all dizzy or something like that. Video games have weird and dumb things.
That's still so much better than tickling someone into submission, Victoria.
There's lots of stuff like that in, like, children's stuff. And it's, like, a children's game. So, like, I don't know.
How do you even die in Gloobers, then?
I don't...
If they tickle you and then put you in prison.
Just pretty much say that. If you're Dwayne, you do. I think it's either you beat the levels or you just can't figure it out how. Maybe they have time limits.
I was going to say maybe it's just time.
So
the time runs out, you fall asleep.
It's funny, time limits, get it? Yeah. But I don't know. Still talking about the scene, it's not as bad if you've listened to it as many times as I have. You kind of get used to the scene to a point where you don't really care as much.
The fact that you become numbed and desensitized to it does not make it better.
No, this scene still bothers me, but it doesn't bother me to as much an extent.
All right.
Yeah.
Fair enough, I guess. I find it funny how entering the game is supposed to mean that all of the programming constructs, like the safety protocols, have become physically manifested, which isn't a complaint. I mean, it's kind of cool. It's something you see in other parallels to this story in other TV shows.
You skipped one of the scenes, like the one, the fight
that
scene.
Happens.
No, the one where they're like fighting over turning on the safety protocols and.
Okay, go on. Say what you want to.
I love that scene. I don't know. Lots of this review is just gonna be me pointing things out and being like, I like that pretty much. But I don't know. Actually, I'll talk about that one later. I'm gonna do what I did in Buried Sin and do my rant at the end. So I'll talk about that later.
All right. I find So like I said, I'm not complaining about the fact that the game constructs are physically manifested like that in terms of programming. Like I do think it's cool. I just think it's funny how that's like just a kind of assumption that we have in this sort of storyline.
Will Smith. No, I always say his name wrong.
Who?
Will, as in Eugene's.
Will Ryan.
Will Ryan. Thank you. I always forget his last name. I always feel so bad about that.
Good.
Go
on.
Thanks. Will Ryan plays a lot of people in this episode. Like, I'm pretty sure he plays all the Gloobers, and he also plays the Game Warden.
What does this say?
Oh no! If you've listened to the official podcast, there was an episode where they did like a free episode thing, and it was for Gloobers. Then right after that, they interviewed the voice actors for Jared and Dwayne, and they got them to talk about it. And they were talking
Brandon
about
Gilberstadt and somebody. I don't remember who Dwayne is.
And
sorry.
They were saying that
if you're watching,
if you're watching, I love you guys so much. They were saying that in some of the scenes where they're like panting like a lot because they were just running around in the game, what they actually did in Focus on the Family is
not there. Salami Studios.
Yeah, in the
if
scene,
that, I don't know.
In the place where
they used to record somewhere else.
They actually, like, the directors and producers got them to like run around the studios until they were like really exhausted and then come back so they could record their lines while they were like panting. So it's not like they just like ran on the spot or something like that. They were like doing laps around the studios. And they also mentioned that there were people doing tours while they were running through it. So they're like running through it and everyone's just like, oh look, there's some voice actors.
And in LA, all the buildings were squished together, right? There probably wasn't an alley or anything. They probably would have been running the whole city block around, which could have been a decently substantial sized block. I don't know where it is.
I think that's interesting.
It is interesting.
Yeah.
You know, there wouldn't have been any problem with what Jared actually did with the safety protocols if they hadn't been inside the room of consequence. Like, what he was doing is what any hacker or modder does to a game. It wouldn't have been a problem if they weren't physically inside of it. Also, on that topic, I think it might have been technically illegal for Eugene to decrypt the source code for a game in order to port it into the ROC like this. But who knows? Who cares? And see, that's where the tickling scene came in. I'm like, it just ruins the mood of the episode. They had like this nice kind of they had a nice ambiance going on.
Is that
with
one
kind
of the
of
reasons
creepy
why
game
you
thing.
don't like this one that much?
I
Please
think
tell me it isn't.
One of the probably the biggest thing I dislike about this episode is the Gloobers themselves overall. From the name to the tickling to the sounds to the physical
I
sign.
actually like the name Gloobers. It's like dumb, entertaining kind of name. Like it's dumb, but it's fun. Like, you can say that about the Gloobers themselves. Like, they are actually, even though they don't sound like it, they're kind of, like, it kind of gives the impression that they're, like, underestimated a lot because they're actually really tough. It's just they kind of make it look like they're not. But they could easily take you down.
That's the interesting thing.
Maybe they're just trying to, like, trick everyone or something
That's
like
the interesting thing, I think, because I kind of mentioned this earlier, and I was thinking, yeah, I think I might be right as we came into the introduction of the master brain, and it feels kind of like the silliness of the Gloobers helps juxtapose the eeriness of the brain like, contrast.
Okay.
It's a fun word for contrast.
I love the master.
It emphasizes how much
villainy.
creepier the brain is, and even still, the brain is sort of like a, you know, not the most sinister of villains, and it's kind of a little silly, but it is still fairly sinister, so you can't fault it too much. So that is something to appreciate at least. And come to think of it, just like Victoria was saying last time, this episode has quite the role reversal for Jared and Dwayne.
So
just like Buried Sin.
How so? Because that kind of contradicts my rant in every single way.
No, here's the interesting thing. It does and it doesn't.
Yeah, I can agree with that.
Jared is completely trusting of the brain and willing to go along with whatever he wants him to do, and it's Dwayne who's really suspicious that there's some sort of plot that's going on here.
Okay, I can kind of see
However, it's also not a role reversal because it's Jared who's being completely irrational here, and Dwayne who's being grounded in reality. Virtual reality, that is.
Leave. Go in the corner again.
It's because not even like sort of. It's not even like a sort of role reversal, but in one sense, it's completely flipped. But in the other, it's completely normal. Because Dwayne is the one being suspicious and conspiratorial, and Jared's the one being trusting, but it's still Jared who's being irrational and Dwayne who's being normal. So,
yeah.
it's kind of interesting. The "please call me master" line can never not have 100% Doctor Who connotations in my mind.
You know, it's...
He says that all the
when
time
I listen
in the
to
classic series.
I've never actually heard him say that in the series.
He's always like,
I've never
call me
to
master. Yeah, I know, you're not that far.
Anyway, but I never actually thought of Doctor Who while listening to this episode until today when I listened to it.
Because of the polarity?
What?
No,
I don't know. It was only when I was typing out the episode description, because I only type out master when I'm talking about Doctor Who stuff. I typed master, and I'm like, huh, they both have that name.
It's
like,
funny, because
interesting.
this episode gave me triple thoughts of Doctor Who, and they were all Third Doctor thoughts.
Maybe that's just because you're on the Third Doctor.
This was the first one. The second one was the fact that they were physically inside a computer, because the last serial that I watched...
Don't tell me that.
But you don't know which one it is.
Carry on.
The last one I watched was the Doctor and Joe being being shrunk and being inside of a computer and working around giant circuit boards and transistors and fans and stuff.
That sounds kind of awesome.
So yeah, that's Third Doctor. This is Third Doctor, and there's another one coming later on, which is funny now that I think about it, going through my notes again, because the brain is like the Master and the Third Doctor at the same time. But we'll get there. Will Jared and I be able to at least talk to each other? Why? You'll be playing video games. Line has always sounded really weird to me, and I guess it's sort of a period thing, and it does date the episode a bit. Because nowadays, 95% of the video games that you're going to play are all multiplayer online ones where you're going to be playing with your friends.
Yeah.
Even if it's not online, you're still going to be playing, you're going to have multiple players playing a game together. I guess this was a time before multiplayer gaming was a thing as much. I'm not sure when did
Or
this...
maybe they just took out all... Maybe they were lying in
Gloobers
the fact
came out in 98, so it's not as old as it could be.
They were probably lying about the fact that you could play, like, any game, and they took out all the multiplayer aspects, so people... It's kind of like... you haven't got this far in Red versus Blue.
Okay,
I won't say it in a way that spoils things, but if you've watched... there's this TV show called Red versus Blue.
It's not a TV show. It's an abridged series.
Whatever.
Sort of.
And there's these characters called AIs, and they're not allowed talking to each other, because if they do, people think that they'll be able to figure out this really big conspiracy. So it's kind of like the same thing.
Even though they're the same person, so...
That's the conspiracy.
Yeah, I know.
Stop.
They already know that, though.
No, but
or do you mean
they would
back
take
in the
out...
Okay, go on.
This is in, like, season 10 and 9 and stuff like that.
Okay, so it is flashback.
Yeah,
then.
so it's flashback stuff. So it's kind of like the same thing in Gloobers. They probably took out all the multiplayer stuff so that people wouldn't be able to, like, talk to each other and realize what's happening to them. I mean, like, kind of like Gregory said, they didn't realize what was happening to them until they came out, but some of them could have been suspicious. I mean, like, Gregory would have to come out to be able to talk to the Master Brain, so I guess they can somehow come out at one point, or rather...
Good point.
Maybe he just didn't have any more life energy to give him, so that's why they took him out, but yeah.
That's a good point.
Thank you.
Yeah, I thought it was weird, because nowadays, I mean, there are kids who spend most of their time with their friends in the form of gaming online together. And while I understand that online multiplayer, like you see in COD or Halo or GTA, that wouldn't have been a thing, yeah, probably, because the internet wasn't developed enough for that. But I imagine, most games back then would have still had hardwired multiplayer options, like Mario Brothers, there's no online multiplayer component to it, but, you're still, a game console is going to have multiple controllers. You play it with your friends, and you talk to each other while you play. So the brain is claiming
they'll be playing video games.
The brain is claiming that the boys are going to be playing every game, then they would be playing together and talking most of the time, wouldn't they? I mean, you need to talk to each other.
You have to communicate. All the multiplayer games, like I said.
Yeah, you have to communicate, open up your heart and communicate in order to play multiplayer games. But that's probably you can't just Leroy Jenkins everything all the time in multiplayer games, but Victoria's probably right on that one.
Would you go into a program where you could experience your favorite game? I would.
I would, yes. I already said that.
With this part, because like I said earlier, when I was little, I never played any video games pretty much. So I always wondered, like, why does Jared want to go play all these video games? And then when I was typing up the description and listening to the episode today, I just thought, like, oh man, I could play all the video games I wanted. I just paused them, like, I'm just like, I want to say I do it, but I know it's a bad decision, but I really want to play some games. So, I'm a bad influence.
Yes, you are. Off the podcast.
Yeah.
I wonder where this game warden minion guy was supposed to have come from. Like, is he purely a game construct, or was he an ex-player like Gregory who...
Maybe the master brain programmed him.
Yeah.
Or
so I'm wondering.
Maybe he could have been an ex-player, that's a good idea. Or he could have been the secret boss of Gloobers or something like that.
He was the scientist who created the Gloobers. Yeah, he's
he
the
could have
final
been
boss.
the Gloobers boss.
And you became a minion to the Master Brain. That's interesting. Headcanon.
So.
I think I've mentioned this to you before, but I cannot hear the scene with old man Gregory without thinking of Aladdin when he's in the jail cell.
I don't think you've told me that before.
And creepy old man Jafar comes up to him and offers the way out of the jail cell to trick him. He's
no,
like,
I think
here,
it'd be more like
get out this way.
The ending scene when the Master Brain's trying to convince Jared to do what he wants, and he's just like, treasure that. That reminds me a bit of
Yeah, but
more.
it's like, Gregory, they're in the jail cell, and the creepy old man comes up, he's like, I can't leave, but I have a way out. Here's a secret way to get out. Go and avenge me. Which makes me think a lot of Jafar. And the thing is, Gregory does like the same thing that Jafar does, so it makes him very suspicious in my eyes, even if he was actually trying to help.
Well, he is kind of tricking them, if you think about it. Like, the whole Gloobers program itself is a trick by Gregory.
Touche.
I was kind of thinking
but
about
old man Gregory
how...
don't know that.
I think it's one of our earlier reviews when we were... one of our earliest OAC reviews when we were doing Castle Far Away. And then we were
hardly
talking...
one of our earlier reviews. I mean, it was like 3 reviews ago out of like 15.
But it was, we were talking about like the old man stereotype who like passes on wisdom. And
yes.
I was thinking,
Harlow Doyle.
It's funny because he is the old man stereotype, but in some of those instances, it's just like the old man stereotype is filled by knowledge they already have. For him, it's experience, and like he's worse off for it, but he wants to like help them. But if you think about it even more, it's not technically the old man stereotype because he's not an old man in real life. He's just tricking them.
Yeah.
But he's tricking for them for the better, kind of.
The funny thing about, Gregory's old man passing on wisdom thing is the fact that old man Gregory, his wish for Jared and Dwayne to do with this information is to tell other kids about his legacy, not to, like, tell his parents why he presumably disappeared from real life. Like, they're supposed to think he was this kid who somehow got sucked into a video game and he's been in there for goodness knows how long. He can send a message to the outside. It's not like, tell my family I love them or that I didn't run away. This is what happened to me. It's like, tell the other kids they shouldn't play games all day long.
I just realized this second that it's supposed to be other people who have played Gloobers that got sucked into the game.
I guess so.
How's that supposed to work? Because Dwayne and Jared,
we're the only ones who did that. Yeah, I know.
Yeah, they're
obviously that was a bit of a plot hole on Eugene's part or Gregory's part, but obviously the guys didn't think about it.
Maybe it's only people who get they beat the game because Jared.
It's like Spy Kids 3D.
We don't talk about
Best
that.
movie, yeah.
We don't talk about that. Maybe it's only people who have beat the game because Jared said that no one in Odyssey has beat the game, or maybe it's just no one on his street or something like that.
Interesting idea.
Because Sarah never got that far, and she never beat the game. So, and they don't know anyone who beat the game, or else they would have mentioned it at the beginning. So it's probably just that, like people who beat the game and they want more of a challenge, and then they get sucked into it.
Or at least that's what Eugene was hoping the boys would think of, and apparently they never thought anything of it.
I thought of it, so it's all good.
So, I don't know. I'm not entirely sure how I feel about how the moral is presented in this episode. The moral itself...
It's a good moral.
The moral itself, I do agree with. I know that we need to have a mix of social and independent activities, that there's a minimum need for physical activity. What we do, we can't spend all of our time focused on one thing. There's nothing wrong with playing video games, but we can't let it consume us.
It's like the song Good Things by McAllister Park.
That's the message of the episode, and... It's a good message. I definitely agree with it, but I feel like in the episode, unless you're digging into it, it came across on the surface more as video games being inherently bad. And I know that wasn't the intention, and if you actually think about the episode, it shows that that's not it. But on a surface level, that's kind of what the connotation feels like it is. And I guess that's why there's people like us here to pull episodes apart and see what they're really saying.
I always think this was the most hilariously ironic moral for me because, like I've said, I listen to this episode on repeat all the time. So I would spend all my time listening to an episode about not wasting your time. I think that's just hilariously ironic.
That is ironic.
Also, I always like waste my time with a bunch of stuff. Like, I'm the master procrastinator. I'm better than Isaac at it.
The mass
procrastinator.
Yeah, promastinator. I don't know.
Never
it's
mind.
not gonna work.
Yeah, no.
It sounded like it would work, but it's not.
No, it's not.
Dwayne probably could have come up with a more...
No. Anyway.
Let's just stop before it turns into bad.
Yeah.
Dwayne...
We both know where this is going. Let's just
Dwayne could have probably given a more subtle signal than, no! Jump!
Yeah.
He's like, on my signal. I find it a bit odd, you know, kind of building onto what I said earlier about the physical manifestations of the programming constructs, that they're physically inside a computer, and of course this is what made me think of Doctor Who more and more. But it's still cool conceptually, so I can't really complain about it. And besides, the kids weren't just entering the game, but the game as if it was... They weren't entering just the game, they were entering the game as it was embedded into Eugene's program, so it's not like it doesn't make sense in the grand scheme of things that they were physically inside a computer. If they were just supposed to enter the game Gloobers, it would not make any sense that they were actually inside a real computer. But because this was Eugene's secret, tricky program, then it kind of fits, yeah.
I think it's kind of funny because we were talking about, was it Bob Luttrell yesterday? And all the voices he does?
Yes. And
it's funny because he plays the Master Brain.
That's true.
Yeah. I'm right, it is Bob Luttrell. Right?
I'm pretty sure.
I'm pretty sure it is.
So
I think that's kind of funny.
A+ vocal effects when they're talking through the van.
Yeah, I always remember, like, every time I'd listen to that when I was little, I'd always forget what was going on, and I would always be so confused. I'd be like, their voices are like, Jared, Dwayne, blah, blah, blah. And I'm always like, why do
it's
they
interesting
because
I imagine,
yeah.
I don't know, maybe they do, but I would imagine the majority of people, or at least a fairly significant number of people, wouldn't realize that that's what your voice sounds like when you talk through a fan.
Well, everyone talks into fans when they're little, so...
Well, that's why I'm wondering. Maybe there are people who didn't do that. Maybe not everyone had as fantastic a childhood as we did. Obviously. And then the Master Brain reversed the polarity, so yeah, they are
awesome.
Fighting the Third Doctor, who is also the Master. And see, this is the even weirder thing here now, because being inside of the computer, like seeing all the computer parts inside is one thing, but not only are they inside the computer, but they are able to literally leave the computer without exiting the program. Like, they jumped out of the computer and down onto the keyboard, and they just jumped out. So if they jumped out of the computer and they didn't go onto the keyboard, hit escape right away, if they just jumped out, where would they have been? Was this a computer on a desk in an empty room with no doors? Was it in the Bible room, like they were actually inside the computer, the programs no consequence?
They just got shrunk down or something.
Yeah.
I mean,
virtually.
Like,
was it a virtual
Come
copy?
through the screen, or did they like go out of the disk drive, or maybe they're like at the school?
Well, they weren't in the screen, right?
They were the computers at the school, like the high school, where they have like little dots on them, like they have like mesh, and maybe they like jumped through the mesh or something like that. But even if they were that small, how would they have enough force
to hit the escape key? I know. Maybe it was like an Apple keyboard that has a very light touch on the keys. But yeah, you're right. Yeah. They didn't come through the screen because they were interacting with all this.
It'd be like an old computer, so it had big clunky keys. You needed to strongly hit the keys.
You just like pound them down with your big, strong fingers.
Bang them to hit the
big piano fingers. But yeah, they were interacting with...
I've never understood that. Also, how did they jump that far?
Yeah. They were, well,
that would, like, kill
the keyboard
them,
could have pressed against the stack, but yeah, you're right. They weren't in the monitor, they were in the stack because they were, the transistors and the CPU and everything were in there, so they weren't inside the monitor.
Do you think they, like,
started it would have been on top
of the, like, at the monitor at the top, and then through the thing they, like, worked their way down to the keyboard?
I'll leave that up to you guys to figure out. Let us know down in the comments what you think. So, yeah, if they had left it, would they have been in a virtual representation of the Bible room? Would there be a virtual Eugene there who would have been like, ants, squish them? Was there a whole other world to explore?
That would have been like the Twilight Zone.
Would there have been like a whole other world to explore? There are so many questions. And see, at the end at least, Eugene does explain the lesson very well. It's about moderation and self-awareness. Know your limits, play within them. That's the motto of the BCLC, which is the BC Lottery Corporation, and it sums up this episode very well.
Also, I like the stuff with Gregory. Like, I don't know, I have weird mixed feelings about Gregory, because he was kind of tricking them, and Eugene was too. Also,
Whit tricks people all the time.
Yeah, Whit probably didn't have any issue with it. He's like, oh, which kid am I gonna trick today? And they come with him, they're like, we have this idea, and he's like, good, then I don't have to come up with one.
Whit might not even have known about what Eugene did.
Yeah, Eugene might just be a liar. But
he's gone turbo.
Which
is oddly appropriate for this episode.
It is. So let me get into my rant, your notes or whatever. So I think the reason that I'm just gonna move this down a bit. Okay. I think one of the reasons I love this episode so much is because.
Should I read this stuff from the book before or after your rant? You can go first since you already started.
Okay.
I don't want you to
So
lose your
one of
train
the
thought.
reasons, because it took me, I was listening to it. I barely paid attention while I was listening to the episode last night and this morning. Well, mainly just last night, because I was thinking, why is this my favorite episode? I need valid reasoning, or else Devin is going to kill me in our debate. I'm going to lose.
I didn't
so
know why I
fast.
really disliked it anymore, and really looking at it again, the Gloobers were really the only reason that I have distaste for this episode.
Yeah. So Devin trying to figure out why he doesn't like it, me trying to figure out why I do like it. I was trying to think of that. Literally, I barely heard any of the episode. Like, I mean, I've heard it so many times, I can pretty much quote it by heart. It doesn't really matter. I can even make the Gloober sound effects. I'm not going to now, because I don't feel like it. We won't talk about it. It's spoilers, it hasn't come out yet.
Yeah, but...
Anyway. And so... the reason it took me forever to come up with it, I did. The reason I love this episode so much is, apart from the conspiracy theories, because this is another one of the episodes that doesn't have any Jared conspiracy theories, this is Jared at his Jarediest and Dwayne at his Dwayniest. Apart
I like that adjective, Dwayniest.
Thank you. It has no Y in it, just so you know.
Oh, I don't like it anymore.
And
Better
apart
than Dwan,
from... Be quiet. Apart from the spy that bugged me, I can say this is probably the episode that shows, like, where their foil shines the most. Like, I won't really...
is the opposite of what I was saying.
Yeah, but I'll get into why I think that. Also, I realized, even though Jared doesn't have any conspiracy theories in this episode or in Buried Sin, I'm not going to talk about Patrick Hardfire in this one, you noticed something with him that I realized the other day. He has a very one-track mind. So, like, his mind is usually just focused mainly on conspiracy theories, but when it isn't, it's either conspiracy theories or, in Gloobers, one-track mind about Gloobers and playing video games. Buried Sin, one-track mind, gotta solve a mystery, gotta do this and this with the mystery and stuff. You know what I mean? Like, he is a person who sees his goal, and then he does a weird way of trying to get to it. Usually he doesn't succeed, but he's Jared, so we all have a laugh, and it's all good. But in this episode, just every single scene with Jared and Dwayne bickering is just, like, so perfectly written and coiffed and beautiful and stuff.
There's weird,
and
like...
I
the
think
tablecloth is reflecting light.
The tablecloth is glowing.
Yeah, its aura is reflecting light. That's weird.
It's really weird.
Like, bizarre.
Stop.
Oh, sorry, go on.
Stop.
Go on.
You messed me up,
We're taking
Devin.
a long time.
Yeah, I know. It's because you messed me up. And I lost my spot. It's all your fault. So, you can always pretty much assume that Jared's going to get into trouble, which is why Dwayne is reasonably worried once they finally do enter the program and tries to stop Jared from messing with the program in the first place. I think it's entertaining that Jared can pretty much always count on Dwayne to kind of, like, listen to whatever he says, even if it takes, like, a lot of persuasion and stuff like that. Like, you can pretty much assume Dwayne will do what Jared says in the end, which is hilarious. Like, because Jared being his best friend... No, Jared being his best friend always knows the way just, like, to directly get to him, which is especially good.
Manipulation.
Yeah, which is especially good in Buried Sin, because
True.
he uses that one for the better.
True.
But in this one, it's funny because Dwayne's like, I'm not that good at Gloober, so I don't really even like it that much. And Jared's like, hey, I'll show you how to beat the levels. And he's just like, well, okay, we can go in. And so then Jared, when they're fighting over Jared trying to, like, switch the safety protocols and stuff, Jared's just, they have, like, this fight and stuff, and then Jared's finally like, okay, I won't do it. Like, he's saying all the things Dwayne wants to hear. You're making eyes at the camera. I can see you.
Making eyes at the camera.
Shut up. And Devin, stop.
I see you, viewer.
Devin, stop. And so then Jared says the thing that he knows Dwayne will, like, he can say to Dwayne to get him to calm down, like, okay, you were right, we won't mess with the program, we'll just keep on being on the lame setting. And Jared's just like, okay, good. Or Dwayne's like, okay, good. And then he's like, really? And Jared's like, nope! And then he just switches the protocols, and Dwayne's just like, oh, snap, I should not listen to my manipulative friend. And so when they finally get there, Jared's just like, yay, more mischief, I get to do whatever I want. And Dwayne's just like, I don't think this is a good idea. And more bickering. And so I think the best scene in the whole episode is when it's the confrontation with the Master Brain at the very end, because
Jared's switch is a good...
Yeah,
I like that,
because the way Jared's been acting for the whole episode, when the Master Brain's, like, starting to manipulate him, or at least it looks like it, you can totally buy that Jared's gonna do everything he says, considering how he's been acting. Like, he was gonna follow the brain already, and Dwayne was the only reason he didn't. Like, he still would have done it if they hadn't been sent to the jail right away. And so then Jared's like, yeah, okay, and then everyone is totally buying into what he's doing. But like I said, in Buried Sin, lots of Buried Sin ties into this. Maybe it's because these two are consecutive episodes, I don't know.
Yeah, that was actually unintentional on
yeah,
Joy's part.
it was. It's just because they're my two favorite. Maybe it's like, I liked one so much, I was still really happy about that one, and then that happiness carried on over. I don't know.
Are they consecutive in the album?
Yeah.
Oh, this isn't the album.
Actually, I didn't like Buried Sin originally, but I won't get into that. Like, it was one of my least favorite episodes.
We're done with that now. That's last time. We
anyway.
gave 5 out of 5, so too late for that.
Yeah. No, I love it now. Anyway, so, you can see that, like, Jared is totally on board, and then he totally pulls a switcheroo, and then he actually kind of brutally-ish kills the Master Brain.
Yeah, I was like,
if you think about it.
I was thinking about it. I didn't make any notes about it, but
when I was writing the description, I put, like, he does this, and then he murders the Master Brain.
We were talking about how, the Gloobers are the way they are because they're trying to, like, tone down video game violence and stuff. And then they don't just disable the brain, but they just pull out his life support
and you can hear, like,
kill him in
gooey
seconds.
noises of him, like, melting or whatever.
Yeah.
It's like a Wizard of Oz on us. And so I think that's the reason I love this episode so much. It's because Jared uses his, like, personality and manipulation to get what he wants throughout the full episode.
Sorry, you said it was like Wizard of Oz, and I was picturing the Master Brain when he reverses the polarity, and they're like stuck down and singing like "Defying Gravity" because they're gonna make him fly with the gravity boots. Go on.
Anyway, so Jared, he's the way he is in this episode. You can totally see him going with all the bad stuff, but like I said, like I was saying before, Devin interrupted me like 10 times. In the Buried Sin review, Jared is a good character deep, deep down, and he does have a moral compass, believe it or not. It sometimes is hard to at lots of points. And so he does what's best for him and his friend, and then he gets them out safely. Like, if you think about it, he was kind of like the Navi, but not annoying in this episode for Dwayne, guiding him along the path, getting him into way too much trouble, and then helping him without Dwayne. And Dwayne did want to kill him at lots of points, so he's kind of like exactly like Navi.
Oh, that I thought you meant like Avatar.
No,
like...
no, I meant from Link.
Okay, Legend of Zelda makes a lot more sense there.
Yeah.
I was like, they didn't get him into trouble. It was the humans. I was like, how did you draw Avatar from this?
No, but what do you think about that?
Yes, it's a good point.
And
I don't really know probably enough about the overall gameplay of Legend of Zelda to comment on that in depth, but
yeah, I don't either. But yeah, that's the reason I love it. It's just like all the unexpected stuff from Jared, because you forget about how good Jared can be at times.
Sliding backwards. Yeah.
So.
All right. We're
Anyway,
like way
it.
over time.
That's it.
Okay.
Not
Final
as good
ratings.
as rant.
Oh wait, I did it. You did it first last time.
Yeah,
so
you give your rating.
I'm gonna give Gloobers 4.2 out of 5.
Boo.
Because it's
higher than I thought you'd give it.
It is a good episode, and my opinion of it has definitely improved with this review because I've realized that the only thing I really dislike about it is the Gloobers.
Has great voice
including
acting.
The title. I just think it's
great voice acting in this episode. Love everyone who worked on it.
Yeah, there's good ambiance
good villain.
to it.
I really like the master brain.
The concept is good. Yeah, his voice and his intentions are quite good. Well done.
He's a lot
the
like
moral,
Cassandra.
It's well done, and it's relevant.
I imagine him to be a lot like Cassandra from Doctor Who.
You ship them, Lady Cassandra O'Brien,
I imagine them to look
Delta
a lot
17.
alike. What do you think? Like
well, one's
brain,
a face and one's a brain.
Yeah,
so.
one's a face and one's a brain. They belong together. OTP.
Oh, what a ship!
What a crossover!
Ugh, yeah, wrong doctor that we're talking about.
Anyway.
Yeah, that's my rating. I think it's pretty well justified from already before.
So
what are you
knocked off 1 point, or you knocked off
0.8
because you don't like the Gloobers.
Yeah.
Is that it, or is it because like the moral doesn't really stick as much?
No, it is.
It's a hard moral to make stick though.
It's a good moral. I just think that in the middle of the episode, it kind of feels like it wasn't what they were presenting. In the end, Eugene does summarize it, and you can see how they're doing it, but still, sometimes go on.
I don't need to really. The Jared and Dwayne-ness of this episode is just the main reason I love it so much. And all the video game stuff, pretty much everything about this episode, aside from that one tickling scene. But even then, I kind of defended that. Like, as best I could.
Surprisingly.
I didn't think I'd be able to defend that. It's not that dreadful-ish. Okay, it kind of is, but yeah.
You don't have to defend it, Victoria. It's okay.
I can't really defend it. Anyway, weird video game attacks, that's just what it comes down to. This episode, my favorite Odyssey episode, which I feel like I don't have good reasons. I kind of don't, but it's just because I love Jared and Dwayne
Not
so
everything
much.
always has to be justified like that.
So,
that's just a part of life.
Like, I gave way better rant at Buried Sin, but whatever. So, I give this as many stars as there are molecules in existence.
10 times 10 to the 70?
That too.
Approximately. Or is that electrons? I think it might be electrons, never mind. Okay, can I read the stuff now? Which
yes.
I probably should have mentioned this at the beginning, because this is the most interesting thing about this episode, is of course the fact that, for the movies I'm pretty sure, it's the only episode that has been adapted into a movie, and it's the it's the only episode that has been adapted into one of the video games. So this episode is in 3 different formats.
You can play this game?
This episode is in 3 different formats.
Oh my gosh, you can play
there aren't
Gloobers?
even any other episodes that are in 2. Well, it's called Escape from the Forbidden Matrix when it's the video game.
We have to buy that!
When it's the video game and when it's the movie, it's not Gloobers. I don't think Gloobers are in it. It's like Dylan and his sister getting trapped in the game and Eugene and Katrina trying to get them out, I think.
Never mind.
But it's still the same basic concept.
No, it's not the same.
Not
Jared
for you.
and Dwayne and the Master Brain are the ones that make this episode. If it doesn't have any
and I'm pretty sure none of them are in there.
If it doesn't have any of them, it just
Oh, you're right. Here, see? Actors Steve Bridges, Pete Renaday, and Will Ryan voicing the Gloobers. Let's show the picture there. The other way. There they are.
Wow. Good job at holding things, Devin.
Thank you, Victoria. I practice in the mirror.
I bet you do.
Behind the scenes, Gloobers. At the recording session, Phil Lawler asked John Beebe to direct the Gloobers since John had created an entire language for them. For example...
You can't complain about them if they had a language.
For example, a Gloober attack was Wah Wah Woogie. I can't complain about that. I should have got you. You're so good at doing your onomatopoeia voice and stuff now.
That's my
what else?
Gloober impersonation.
There's a number
It would be
of...
like... That's my Gloober impersonation. You can't say that doesn't sound like one.
See? Oh, never mind. It's Katrina who gets trapped in it in the video game.
Oh, that's a bit more interesting.
It's called... yeah, so...
So the Odyssey movie, Escape from the Forbidden Matrix. If it has the Master Brain, there is a chance I will like it.
I don't know. So yes, as the movie, it's called Escape from the Forbidden Matrix. I'm not sure which number it is, but it's one of the newer
But we can
series
assume
ones.
it will be put on the OAC, and we will be reviewing it sometime.
Actually, we'll be talking about that in just a couple of minutes. There it should be. Here it is. All the videos should be listed here in order. Well, they didn't put the videos on this list.
Hi, future Devin, when you're editing this.
They didn't put the videos on this one. It's in the old guide. Anyways, Boy Imprisoned by Video Game by John Beebe. Oh yeah, and as a game, it's called The Great Escape. Sorry. By John Beebe. My son Robert, who was addicted to the Chips Challenge game at the time, woke up one morning from a terrible dream. In his dream, he was actually inside the game and he couldn't get out. He went from level to level trying to escape, but he couldn't. Needless to say, he spent less time playing video games after that. And needless to say, I got a great idea for the Gloobers show. The Master Brain represents the gaming industry. While the game makers may not be inherently evil, the entire industry feeds off kids' time, an enormous amount of time. I'm not against video games, I just think kids and parents need to work together to make reasonable limits on the time spent playing them. Interestingly enough, Robert's dream was adapted into this show, which was adapted into an Odyssey video, Escape from the Forbidden Matrix. Matrix. Oh, that was me glitching out because, he turned off the safety protocols. Which was made into a book, and ironically enough, a video game, The Great Escape. So, really all that needs to happen is for Robert to play that game and have another dream now, and the cycle will start again. Also, I think there might be some...
As long as they bring Jared and Dwayne back to Odyssey, I'm fine with whatever
on
they do.
AIOO Wiki, I think there might be some other ones, so... We already said that the idea of the living brain may have come from A Wrinkle in Time.
Pete Renaday that plays the Master Brain.
Ah.
Oh, we're sorry.
Yeah, the idea of the living brain may have come from A Wrinkle in Time. And Dwayne says, I've got a bad feeling about this. A common quote from the Star Wars universe. I think that might have just been because that's just a common thing that you say. I don't think that was necessarily a Star Wars reference, but discuss it down in the comments. So, the end.
That closes the book on Gloobers, which is funny enough the only adaptation it hasn't been made to.
Well, they just said it was made into a book.
Oh.
Which
I want to read it.
Apparently, maybe.
If
I don't know.
Dylan, I don't want to read it.
I guess one of the original series. The original series novels don't have Dylan in them, only the videos.
Jared in it.
Jared wasn't born yet when those novels take place. I don't know. Maybe it's in a different series. Maybe they didn't say the name, so maybe it wasn't even made into an Odyssey book. I don't know. Anyways, this episode is way too long, so we need to stop talking now. Next time on the subject of Odyssey movies, what are we doing, Victoria? Something brand new.
We're going to be reviewing Flight. No, that's not the first episode.
No, it's not.
The
Night Traveler.
The Night Travelers, which is the first Odyssey movie.
The OAC has been posting ever since the beginning of May, I believe. Every week they've been posting one of the Odyssey videos. There are 17 of them. Of course, they are renowned in this fandom for being very disliked because they're made for a much younger age range and they don't really have any of the characters. We've talked about all of this before.
Yeah, we've made a couple of comments.
Even
but we'll get into
the radio show.
Reasons.
The radio show even made an episode
made
to spoof.
Multiple episodes.
Made an episode to spoof how bad the video series was compared to the radio show.
Which is kind of strange.
Because then they're made by the same people, but
yeah.
Whatever. Okay, so next time, yes. The first one, The Night Travelers, which many people know bits of from Dobson Comes to Town because they play clips of it and talk about it a lot in there.
It'll be interesting because I've never seen it.
Neither have I.
Yeah.
So this is,
We've actually seen some Odyssey movies, but we've never seen
We are not going to be just recording a review after the fact, but we are going to be recording it as we are watching the episode and posting clips from
not the whole
our
thing.
Live blogging of it. Yeah, not the whole thing because we can't do that. It'll be mirrored and I'll pitch the audio differently for the movie so that, we don't get smacked by YouTube's automatic copyright filter. But that's what we're going to do. So something exciting and new next time. So look forward to that.
I am.
And
So-
until then, thank you for joining us on our side of the YouTube, something we haven't said in a while.
Thank you for letting me choose the last 2 reviews.
You're welcome.
Hopefully you guys liked my choices. I personally did.
You have been
Victoria. This has been Animal, and that has been Devin.
And you've been watching The Adventures in Odyssey Oddcast.
Bye.